check. Check 1, 2. Ms. Whitman, can you hear us?
Jim Payne said yes.
I can hear you.
Okay. Larry, you
Okay.
can hear us?
I can hear you. I meant, yes, I
Okay.
can hear you. I forgot to
You
unmute.
sound good, thanks. If you're ready, Pam, we're good to go.
All righty. Give me 1 second. All right. I call the Patton Township Board of Supervisors October the 12th, 2022, meeting at 5:33 to order. Welcome all to the new, especially to new Patton Township residents, to the Patton Township community, a place for all. As you are able, please join the board in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Additions to the posted agenda. Are there any items that the supervisor would like to add to this posted agenda at this time? Doug?
No, Madam Chair, but if we could just take a moment, we have a new staff to introduce. Mark, would you like to introduce our new planner?
Good evening, everyone.
evening.
Tonight, I'm given the pleasure of introducing Ms. Leslie Warner, who is the newest addition to the Center Regional Planning Agency. Leslie joined us on Monday as a senior planner and will be serving as a regional planner 50% of her time, and then as your local planner the other 50%. So, Leslie, if you want to just take a minute and introduce yourself a little more and give a little bit of your background, that would be great.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
I was previously employed in the Center Region as the transportation planner for Center County a couple of years ago, so I know our paths have crossed before. But I am really excited to be on board and looking forward to getting to know the people that I haven't met before. So thanks for having me.
Thank you. And welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, Doug, at this time, can I move the agenda?
Sure.
All right. For township logo update, I would like to move that up to,
Why don't we do public comments first? and then do-
oh, okay. And then I can move it up. Fine. All right. Public comments. Residents, taxpayers may address the board on issues of interest to the township. Comments related to a specific agenda item should be deferred until that point in the meeting. If you are attending by Zoom, please use the raised hand feature of the Zoom application and wait for the chair to indicate it is your opportunity to speak. If you are attending in person, please approach the podium and wait for the chair to indicate it is your opportunity to speak. Public comments received by mail or voicemail since the last meeting is included in item 2. Please be respectful and refer to using any profanity, derogatory, or any offensive language, abbreviations, or gestures during the meeting. Respect is always given by this board and expect the same in return. Public comments are limited to 5 minutes per person. Are there any public comments at this time?
We have Jack
Okay.
and Usual.
Jack, it is your time, sir.
Great,
Welcome.
thank you, and thanks for the opportunity to talk to you with you today. So my name is Jack Vandenhavel, and I am a resident of Blueberry Crossing. And we have sent in several letters regarding a sewage pump station that is being planned by UAJA in our residential neighborhood. And although I think the letters do a good job of kind of explaining what our major concerns are, I just wanted to highlight a couple of things that I find particularly troubling about UAJA's decision to build in our subdivision. One is it's illogical, and second, I'm afraid that it's immoral. As far as being illogical, so this is to support a subdivision that has not been built and to support public works for a major subdivision of around 1,200 units. Although we understand that this is a public works and it's in the public good, moving the septic line out of an area that is being served by that sewer system doesn't make any sense. In particular, when the shortest route to get to a sewer line is much shorter than running it a mile through farmland, through residential property, along a stream, under a stream, into a subdivision, back under the stream, down a road, and then connect to that, back to the sewer system. So it doesn't make any sense, the route, it doesn't make any sense to put it in a residential area. I think it's desperation based on the fact that every other plan that they have had has fallen through. And they have just put it into this spot and tried to sneak it past us. In fact, if this were the most logical place to put it, they would have put it here 6 years ago when they started, before we had actually started building any of the properties within Blueberry Crossing. So we are all basically new residents here in Patton Township. They could have put it here before we moved in. They didn't. They were turned away from every other opportunity. So now they placed it within our subdivision. The second point is morality. So this decision to put it into our neighborhood was made without notification, without discussing it with us, and I fear without even looking at the site to see how it had been impacted by the new houses that have been put in. If they would have just come and looked at the site, they would see what they had chosen is really not the best site in the area. There are plenty of other sites that they could do that are not within the neighborhood. So they have chosen to put it in our subdivision over a flood zone in our aquifer for drinking water. All the people in this neighborhood and in the surrounding region get their drinking water from pumps that are going to be impacted by this industrial sewer system within our neighborhood. I am an environmental toxicologist. I teach classes at the university that deal with how pharmaceuticals, household products, household chemicals are able to evade wastewater treatment facilities, contaminate drinking water, contaminate surface water, and cause health effects. And UAJA is putting this subdivision where they cannot guarantee it's not going to leak. They can't guarantee it's not going to get flooded and mishandle the sewage. And they're putting it in a place where we're getting our drinking water. This is a community of young people. We have a lot of children, a lot of risk here of contaminating our water and causing adverse health effects they do not need to do. So I hope that this doesn't come to pass. I think it is a absolutely horrible decision to put it in this location. I think it is putting us at risk. So it is not a public good, it's a public risk. So thank you.
Dr. Hubble, I would like to let you know that this board had received letters from you and from other residents in that area, and we have reviewed it, and I do know our township manager has responded to each and every concern. So thank you for taking the time out, and if any of our supervisors would like to comment at this time.
We have other folks who would like to comment.
Oh,
Mr.
I'm sorry.
Chair. So, Mr. Papalia?
Yes. Mr. Dad?
Sure, yes, thank you. And I just wanted to echo Jack's sentiment. My name is Zach Papalia. I'm a current resident of Patton Township and soon to be resident of Blueberry Crossing. My wife and I are actually the owners of Lot 4 in Blueberry Crossing, where this pump is scheduled to be installed. We purchased this land last summer. We have lived in State College since 2012, and I've been here since 2007 when I started my undergraduate studies. My wife and I often debated about laying down roots elsewhere and leaving, but time and again, we never found any true justification to leave a place as beautiful and in our opinion as great as State College. We are natives to central and western Pennsylvania, and this always felt like home. Last fall, we welcomed our first child, and 2 years ago, and shortly after we decided it was time to build our forever home here in State College, and particularly in Patton Township. We were fortunate enough to find this property, and it has been a major milestone in our lives. We are just, at this point, I think 3 weeks away from moving into what we believe will be our home for the next 30, 40, or 50 years. And to have just only now heard about this news is very troubling. When we went through the purchase process, due to the unique nature of the lot, we did our best to complete all of our due diligence. We visited the courthouse, the recorder of deeds. We met with members of the township council on the call here today. We went through lengthy discussions with the seller, Baker. We were very aware of the unique restrictions around Blueberry Crossing and our land, the protected waterway, the flood berm, the floodplain, the unique blend of agriculture and residential in the area. But at no point were we made aware that there was actively a plan, and from our research, there's been a plan now going on for nearly 6 or 7 years that could be targeting Blueberry Crossing, and again, my land as a location for a pump station. In fact, during the planning stages of our home, we had to go to great lengths to satisfy all of the zoning and the environmental restrictions. We even had to reduce the size of our patio by just 2 feet to avoid infringing on the floodplain, which makes up the vast majority of the 7.2 acres that I now own and that are now being looked at as a location. And I want to clarify that we were okay with all of these restrictions because we want to be truly good stewards of this land. We want our son to grow up in the nature of central Pennsylvania. We want to help protect the waterways and the forests and the farms. But to now think that all of these concerns that we as private citizens had to deal with when again, trying to go through just a simple process of planting roots and being long-term members of the community, all of the hoops we had to jump through are now just seemingly being dismissed for the sole benefit of a future community miles away, and seemingly the substantial financial benefit of UAJA, in my opinion, is just truly heartbreaking. I'm building my forever home here. This is my forever land. And to think that not only is our land going to be taken and that of my neighbors in what I can only call a very subversive manner, but our forever home, the forever homes of our neighbors, the safety, as Jack mentioned, of our children, will all be substantially devalued and our quality of life dramatically reduced. I just can't put into words how upsetting this has been. And I truly hope that beyond simply acknowledging our letters and pointing us, in what seems to be an endless merry-go-round of referrals across agencies, that someone will truly step up and acknowledge the issues with this plan and understand the value that is Blueberry Crossing and the members of our community, and reconsider the placement of this pump house. So thank you again, and I'll turn it over to whoever's next.
Okay, thank you. Next. Is there anyone else?
Doesn't appear to be.
Okay. Any comments for any of our supervisors? Supervisor Abrams?
This is not the first time that the authority has done something like this, and I would think that by this time it would have learned that you need to contact the people who are going to be affected by something before you put something in. That's one thing that the township always does. The problem we have right now is that once you appoint a board member to an authority like this, the authority then has the say over what it does. We don't have a say. We appoint an advisor to a member to that particular board, but it's independent. I made this point several years ago when we changed the Recreation Committee of COG to an authority. I said we're going to lose all control of this, and I think part of the problem has come up in the delay over in to the Oak Hall Park, but not the one which
Whitehall Road.
Whitehall Road Park. That nobody knew exactly who was in charge, and people when the authority will say one thing, and then the townships will say something else. But unfortunately, we're stuck with this. But I think we need to be very strong about telling the sewer authority that this is not good.
Any other supervisor at this time?
Madam Chair.
Supervisor Trevino.
I don't have that much to add to what Supervisor Abrams has already said. Certainly, UAJA, as an authority, they have that legal ability to use their eminent domain powers to install these kinds of systems, but they are supposed to collect public input on their projects. I know that it was a couple of years ago that they had, I think they first
Cedar Cliff
told us about, they were considering putting in this, well, it wasn't more, it was more than that. It was longer than that. I don't recall the exact year. So we certainly were aware that they were considering this pump station, and you're as citizens, you are able to comment on any of their proposed plans. So I'm sure you were told to send your comments, and I think our manager is forwarding your comments as well directly to UAJA. And Doug, aren't they going to have a public meeting to solicit comments as well?
Well, maybe I'll get Mark back up. But the first step to this, and let me just, at this point, all the decisions are in the hands of UAJA. They have several options that they could look at. So I would encourage everybody just to go back and keep telling UAJA your position. I did forward the comments that we received to the executive director at UAJA, and I think Center Region COG is probably keeping them also. In terms of process, I'm going to ask Mark Bokel, who's with the Center Region Planning Agency, to just give us kind of a timeline of the process going forward here in the next few months.
Right, so for this particular issue, the UAJA had their consultant prepare a special study that would amend the Act 537 sewage facilities plan to allow them to construct this pump station and other infrastructure related to it that's in the special study. That special study needs to be approved unanimously by all 6 Center Region municipalities in order for them to move forward. They forwarded the special study to the Center Regional Planning Agency. It was either, I believe it was last month, and at that time we started receiving comments from the residents as well. The intention here is to have that special study go before the Land Use and Community Infrastructure Committee at their meeting in November, where they would be able to provide comments or ask questions and whatnot of the request that UAJA has.
That's a Council of Governments committee.
Right.
Do you have a date for that committee?
It's the first Thursday in November at 12:15.
Council of Governments building.
At the Council of Governments building, and the agenda would be on the website for the Center Region Council of Governments about a week before. There also is a Zoom option for participation if folks don't want to attend in person. The point is, at that meeting, the elected officials have the option of continuing to forward that on to the general forum for review, or you could certainly have it forwarded back to the UAJ with a request that they work with the residents to see if they can't resolve some of the concerns. That is the current position of the CRPA. We did send a letter today to the executive director at the UAJA with a request that their UAJA board chair be made aware of this, and that we would hope that they'd be willing to try to see if there's some compromises that can be made to make some adjustments if need be to allow this plan to come back forward with some of these concerns hopefully resolved. So Much like Doug said, we feel like at this point, it really is a UAJA issue to address, but there is that regional process that they will still need to go through in order to get approval from the municipalities to construct the facility in the future. So I hope that.
Yeah, at some point, it will be back in front of this board.
Correct.
But we're probably several months from that point.
Right.
So again, UAJA is 100% able to resolve this issue in one of many ways probably. And I think at this point, we just leave it in their hands. I think they're aware of the comments, they're aware of the attitudes. So like I said, they have all the abilities now to resolve it in several different options. And again, we encourage everybody to just keep talking to UAJ.
Can we also make the recommendation, since it's going back to COG, that we as officials follow up on and support our residents at this meeting to hear, our concerns?
Well,
I know it's coming back.
until you've heard from UAJ, I would really reserve.
Okay.
I would tell you to reserve making any decisions on the issue. Again, we haven't heard anything from UAJ.
Oh, okay.
You haven't seen their study. Again, they have many options that they could undertake.
Okay.
But I would just say, until you hear
It
both
all-
sides of the story, you really ought not to make decisions at this point.
Okay. Supervisor Abrams?
I would agree with not making a decision at this point, but I think it's fortuitous that the Lucy meeting that was normally the first Thursday of the month was not held last Thursday. It is actually tomorrow at noon, and it's a joint meeting with the Regional Planning Agency Committee. And so there will be a public comments period, I believe, at the beginning of it, and I would hope that people do make the same points there, just to make sure that everybody in the region hears them, and it's not just the township.
Certainly, and just to point out, tomorrow's meeting at 12:15, this item is not on that agenda.
That's why I said public
Right,
comments period.
right, but it is, I looked, it's the 3rd of November is when it would be on the agenda, and I think we're still planning to take it forward along with all the comments we've received to make all of the Lucy Committee members aware.
Okay. Supervisor Magruder?
Yeah. So I appreciate the feedback, input from the residents, and so from what I'm understanding is that this is in the hands of UAJA, and there will be a process by which there will be a review of whatever their finalized sort of like plan is that will come to the different municipalities to vote on in the COG, and that will then get kicked back up to UAJA to ultimately make a decision. Am I understanding that correctly?
What would happen is once the plan is before the Center Region municipalities for approval, if it is approved at that point, UAJ would, whatever's in the plan is an approval as far as the location and the infrastructure, that's what they would be submitting to the Department of Environmental Protection to be able to move forward with constructing. So really at this point, whatever they send forward to the municipalities for approval is what they're asking for approval to do. So what is before us right now is what the folks are here commenting on. If they make further changes to that, that would be what would come forward for the municipalities to consider.
Okay, so that's helpful then, and so just echoing what the other supervisors here have shared is that if there are concerns, public concerns, please go to these other meetings and voice those concerns, and we will, as a board, advocate by our votes, I guess, at some point once that plan comes before us. And so, again, we have your backs. We just ask that you continue pushing. I'll definitely be learning more about this issue and seeing if it can be a good resolution. So thanks for showing up.
Thank you.
Betsy,
Supervisor Whitman?
Actually, Zach had his hand up first. Sorry, I can't remember how to pronounce your last name. Sorry about that.
No, that's no problem. I barely know how. Zach Papali. I just had one follow-up question to clarify. So eventually the plan will go to all 6 municipalities, and there needs to be a unanimous approval across all 6 for the pump station to advance.
That occurs at COG.
Is that?
Yeah, just
Is that correct?
to clarify, that process will occur at the Council of Governments. There'll be All the municipalities join together once a month and meet as council of governments. And so that unanimous vote would take place at a council of governments meeting. At some point, UAJ will need to come back before the Patton Township Board of Supervisors. They're going to need permission to put pipes in the roadways. They may need permission to cross other pieces of Patton Township property. Depending on where they finally end up putting this pump station, they'll probably need either a land development plan or some sort of additional development permit from the township. So at some point after the council of governments process finishes, then they'll come back here one more time. So again, the opportunities and the options to resolve this all lay in UAJ's hands today. So
Thank you. I just, I'll end after this. I do want to just have it on the record that our community did go to the last UAJA meeting. They told us that they were not able to receive our comments, questions, or feedback. We had to take it to Center Region Planning Agency. And when we also mentioned the impact on property value, I believe their direct quote was, "We don't understand how this could impact your property value." So we have been dealing with them. We will continue to do so. But I just wanted it on record that so far, as I mentioned, it has been quite a subversive and disappointing process. But that's neither here nor there. Thank you all again for your time, and I'll go back on mute.
All right. Thank you. Supervisor Whitman.
you're muted, Betsy.
Betsy,
You're still muted, Betsy. There you go.
There we go. Sorry about that. I think, I just wanted to ask the question that Mr. Papalia actually asked about the nature of the vote that takes place at the Council of Governments at COG. Does that have to be a unanimous decision by all 6 municipalities? Do you know that, Doug?
we're finding out.
I'm going to let Mark answer.
Yeah, so what normally happens whenever you have a special study like this, it would be like the unit vote that was taken at the last general forum meeting, where you would be breaking out into your individual municipal boards and councils, holding a vote, and then reporting the results of that vote. So as long as all 6 municipalities have a majority of their boards in agreement of the special study, it would be considered approved at that point.
Supervisor
Great.
Abrams?
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I think that's correct, but I wonder, I know there have been some people in the last few years who have asked whether certain things could be done by majority rather than unanimity. I think we need to look up the specific COG agreement to see if it has been changed since we first did that a number of years ago, because this has been an area of contention, and I wouldn't want anyone to have the false idea that it has to be unanimous, if in fact it can be by majority. I think that you're right, but I think we need to check the paperwork to make sure that what the rule is.
What I can say at least is that because this is a multi-municipal sewage facilities plan, the Department of Environmental Protection expects to see a resolution from each municipality as part of this. That is how they go about reviewing it on their end, where they won't accept a special study unless it has been approved by all 6 municipalities.
Yeah, we'll go back and double check, Elliot, but I think
That's fine.
the issue where they changed the vote from 6 to 5, I think, has to do with the expansion of the sewer boundary.
That's right.
I think that's
So if
right.
somebody's proposing an expansion of the sewer boundary, then that can be done with a 5 to 6 vote, or 5 to 1 vote. But we'll double check just to make
But
sure.
let's say that they decide that the way to solve this problem is to expand the sewer service area.
Well, that would ultimately comes back to this body.
Right.
Yeah,
And any
So-
sewer service expansion needs to be supported by the host municipality.
yeah.
That's also stated in that agreement, so that would be another issue they'd have to overcome, is having your support.
So we will very much be talking about this again.
Okay.
But today, we just don't have the information in front of us to really make any sort of decision. All the decision-making, again, is in the hands of UAJ today. And until they get to that meeting in November, it's all UAJ's issue to take care of. They're aware of the comments. I would encourage the folks to keep pestering them as if it was in front of us, we'd expect you to pester us too. But, you know, sometimes pestering is an appropriate activity by the residents and citizens of a democracy, so.
Thank you, Doug. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Betsy, and the rest of the board supervisor.
One last thing, please.
Okay.
So I'm not sure if it's appropriate to do this, but I know that these messages are being forwarded back to UAJA from public comments. Obviously, we're not taking a stance right now on this project, but is it not worth the board sending a letter to UAJA saying we're getting these concerns, and we too hope that their concerns will be taken into consideration before we get it?
UAJ is an independent authority. How many letters do you want from them advising you what to do?
And so this is more so just from an advocacy standpoint.
Well, I think at this point, the message I will send to them is watch the recording of this meeting.
Okay.
How's that?
All right.
And urge their board members to probably watch it too.
Okay. Supervisor Abrams.
We might want to alert our representative on UHA that this is an
This
issue.
is coming.
Yeah, we can do that.
Okay. Thank you. Moving on, as I stated earlier, I would like to move 7B up to number 3 at this time. And that is the township logo update. Doug or Larry?
Yeah, I'll take this one. We had talked many months ago about looking at our logo, and this came about as we were talking about our website and moving our website into the current century. And it may be time to do something similar with our logo. Our logo, I think, was developed back in the late 80s or 90s. And represents, you know, I think, and I don't know what process we went through when they adopted that logo, but it represents the mix of things that were going on in Patton Township at that time. Today, Patton Township's a little different. We're more suburban. I think in a few years, we're going to have areas that look far more urban. Patton Crossing being one of them, and Toft Trees West is another area. I think we're going to see development in a much more urban manner than the suburban. So to get this process started, I did ask our communications specialist, Sophie Weston, to come up with just a few examples, and we have those here with us, and we'll share those. So there's our existing logo. In terms of the colors, Sophie has used those colors when we moved into our new website. So if you look at our website, you'll see those blues and reds are fairly prominent. You know, we don't have a township colors, but if we did, that's probably, you know, we can talk about that too. So if you want to scroll down. So again, you can just scroll through these slowly, Alex. Sophie came up with just some samples. You can take a look. She's used our motto, "A Place for All," in all of them. You can see, you know, we're a mix of housing styles and building styles, and, you know, maybe we want more trees in there or something else. But at this point, I think the question to the board is, do you see something you really like? Or if not, what kind of process do you think we should go through to find something? And I'm more or less going to put this in the hands of the boards right now to throw out some ideas, we can discuss them, and maybe we can settle on an approach tonight. If not, we can keep discussing it.
I moved this up for Supervisor Magruder since he brought it up. It's your floor for a minute.
Okay. Yeah, so it looks good aesthetically, all of the things happening here. I want to take a step back though and talk about the process. I know I had mentioned before getting public input for this design. So I guess the question would be then, is that still a possibility? What would that actually look like, soliciting different designs from the public? But speaking to what has been presented to us, I mean, it looks cool, it looks clean, it looks modern, font and everything. I like it. I'm very much into the, circular type of stuff. And so from that standpoint, like it looks cool. I just would like it to be more personal. And like I said, I think getting some engagement from the community, this would just be a cool opportunity to get more engagement from our community, who I think is very creative. And yeah.
Okay, Supervisor Whitman, I see your hand up.
Yes, thank you, and I think I'm unmuted. So I'd like to echo what Supervisor Magruder said about it being a little more personal and getting that engagement from the community. And I might point out that I don't feel that we're in any rush for this. So as far as the process goes, I certainly don't want it to take another 5 years, but, again, I don't see the need to rush. I want to reflect Doug's remark about maybe more trees. What I think of when I think of Patton Township is actually a great place to shop. And even though people, when they shop at our, along North Atherton Street, they probably don't realize they're in Patton Township. But what I really think about with Patton Township is our open space, and I think our citizens think of it that way. We certainly have shown that with our vote within the last 8 years, twice. So, or maybe even longer, but certainly in my lifetime, my living time here.
Okay,
Thank you.
Supervisor Abrams.
I realize that on these pictures here, we don't see the small plants that represent the different types of things grown on the farms around here. But so we might want to make them bigger here next to the trees. And make sure also that none of them are invasive species as well. I don't know about the tree there. But I agree with making it more personal. We might even want to have a township contest to see some of and it's no criticism of what's been done already. This is better than what we had. But maybe the person who wins that could be invited to the township dinner whenever it is in late January, early February, and get an award for having proposed it. But that's getting ahead of ourselves. But that's just an idea.
I like it. Supervisor Trevino.
I agree with everything that's already said.
I agree with
We're in no rush, like Betsy said.
We're in no rush, like Betsy said.
I'm getting feedback here.
Yeah, see it.
Fixed it.
I thought it was muted.
No, Alex fixed
Oh,
it.
you're fine now, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and the idea of inviting other artists in our township to make some contributions so we could look at a bigger variety of ideas. I think I'd like to see that.
Taken from the Alpha ladder truck that they have, which is always a huge success, and the kids love. There's always a big line for the truck. So we sent the camera up, and they took a couple photos. You want to switch to the next one? This kind of shows an overview. And then the very last photo we have here next is actually the Pennsylvania State Police helicopter coming. And it's kind of funny because some of the firefighters came up to me and said, well, now we're the second coolest thing here. So we can't compete with the helicopter for the police, but honestly, the kids had a fantastic time. They loved the helicopter, they loved the fire truck, they loved all the equipment. And that brings us to a nice email we received from a woman who took her grandson, her 5-year-old grandson, first time to the event. And she says it best. She says, that smile says it all. It's tough to see in the photo there, but just ear to ear grinning. And just had a fantastic time there. So she was just really appreciated all the hard work that does go into it. But it's an event that I'm very proud of. I was actually here for the very first year that it started. So I've been attending it or helping or assisting to organize it in some way for the last 20 years. And again, we are extremely proud of this event and will continue to offer it to the community for many, many years to come. So, moving on, we had a performance report. On September 9th, Officer Bardzell and Officer Carter responded to a hotel for a report of a man who had collapsed and was unconscious. Officer Bardzell arrived first and determined that the patient was in cardiac arrest. He immediately began to give CPR, chest compressions. Officer Carter arrived, took over the chest compressions, and Officer Bardzell administered rescue breathing. After several minutes, they had applied an AED to the individual and administered 3 shots. And that's one of the most important things, is getting an AED to the scene very quickly of a cardiac arrest and getting that shock to get the heart started up again. EMS arrived and took over care, and the patient was transported to Mount Airy Medical Center for more advanced care. And as of a few days afterwards, and I believe he did make a full recovery. So it was due to the quick actions of Officer Bardzell and Officer Carter that a patient in cardiac arrest was revived and able to be transported for more advanced care. And truly, their actions reflect the highest credit on themselves and on our agency. Lastly, we have our call list for the month of September. Again, a pretty busy month. We had 543 calls for service. That's up from the 440 we had in August. The most common call for service that we had was school checks. We had 107 school checks, so our officers were very busy just being in the areas of the schools and making sure everything was okay there, followed by 61 health and safety EMS assists. The one thing I did want to mention, and I'm probably going to speak with Sophie about maybe putting something on our website, and it's in one of our requests for assistance, and that's why I'm bringing it up. Recently, and maybe some people have some personal experience with this, we've been getting a lot of residents coming in saying that their license plate on their vehicles are peeling. So I don't know if you've seen, but a lot of times now the paint is kind of peeling away, sometimes making them unreadable or very difficult to read. So there is a form that PennDOT has. It's the MV44. It's available on their website. So like I said, I'm going to put this information on our website though as well. For a resident or an owner of a vehicle to fill out a few of the blocks, for them to get a replacement registration plate so that it's legible and you can see it. There is a section that law enforcement does have to verify the tag and the information, so we have to fill a part of it out. But anybody is free to bring this in if you're having issues with your registration plate. If you bring in the form, we'll fill out the section we have to fill out, you send it into PennDOT, and then we'll send you a new tag. So, like I said, I just wanted to bring that to we're receiving a lot of them. I'm not sure if it was weather-related, bad material, but for some reason, we've seen probably, I bet you 20 or 30 in the past 3 or 4 months. So,
Chief, the form, you're saying it's being sent out?
I'm saying, what?
PennDOT is sending these forms out?
They're not sending them out. They're available on their website. Like I said, it's the MV44. And like I said, I'll make a copy available on our website also if you maybe put something out so that we have a link to it to be able to get to it and find that information. So, yeah.
Please. Supervisor Abrams.
This reminds me with the paint of the story of the individual who got a lot of paint jobs because he watered down the paint. He got a job to paint a church, and the people are sitting in the church on Sunday morning. It starts to rain, and they see all this white stuff coming down the side of the church, and they wanted to have the person punished, and they made him go to a confession, and he was told, repaint, and sin no more.
Thank you, Ellie. I needed a break on that one. Any other questions for Chief, please? Okay, moving on. Next on the agenda is grant application. Chief?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and take this one. I guess you're going to come to me. Okay.
We've done all the work.
Probably about a month and a half ago or so, we received information that the Pennsylvania Commission on Crime and Delinquency was going to have a grant available. It was a local law enforcement support grant program. About $135 million is available in its Federal American Rescue Plan Act funding. So Patton Township's allotment was up to $1 million. We did work with Delta Development Group, who has assisted us in preparing an application for some funding. We are asking for $185,346 in funding. A few projects that we're looking to complete would be to replace our body-worn camera equipment, 16 cameras, and also 8 in-car cameras. We're looking to potentially have a consultant who will help us develop a police recruitment and retention and diversity plan. And then 2 other sections under what's considered other in the grant. There's a retention bonus for current officers who are in good standing, just to help kind of raise morale and to keep them interested in making sure that they stay and keep providing good service here in Patton Township. And then lastly is a police officer training simulator suite, which will allow 2 officers to train at the same time. Essentially, it's a virtual reality system. Will help us working on use of force, de-escalation type scenarios that we can run officers through, probably in this room, if we're successful in getting the grant funding for that.
I can get a plug for that. Alex and myself, both at the PML conference, was able to be a part of it. So, Alex, if you want to give your if you ever need anyone, let me know.
It's very, I mean, I've been through a couple of them as well, not necessarily Apex, but they're very realistic.
Yes, they are.
So yeah, it's really good training. So
Yes.
we're excited for the opportunity to possibly get this system.
I'm a supporter of that.
So, for purposes of tonight, we're just asking the board for approval to go ahead and submit this application. It is due tomorrow.
Okay.
So we have it pretty much ready to go. Just looking for the board approval.
Okay, can I get a motion to approve the submission of this grant application? Supervisor?
So moved.
Can I get a second?
Magruder.
Second, discussion?
Go for it.
Okay, seeing none?
No, I have one.
Oh,
Did you
sorry.
say we had up to 1 million?
Yeah, but we couldn't find $1 million worth of things to do.
Oh, my goodness. You come talk to me.
Yeah, and honestly, we probably maybe could have stretched out a bunch of other things, but these are the ones we really want to focus on in the near future here. And, 135 million spread across the state.
There was a limit of $1 million that we could apply for.
Yeah.
It's not ours. We still have to apply, and it is a competitive grant.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed, any abstentions? Motion passes.
So just as another note, the borough is also applying for monies to cover our replacement records management system that we're part owners in. So if the borough's successful on that, then that would also save us money in the future for costs for record management system replacement.
Okay. Thank you.
Quick question.
Supervisor Abel? No,
Ms.
Supervisor Whitman.
Betsy.
Oh, yeah, thank you. Quick question. It just occurred to me that this is a simulation room that we will have, or it's just computer equipment that would be used in a room? Is that sort of in a 3D situation? Is that what I'm understanding?
No, it's just a goggles type of system for
Gotcha.
Virtual reality.
Of course. So,
I mean, it can be done anywhere, really. So,
it did actually spark a question about sharing this resource across municipalities or with other police units, and just throwing that out there.
Yeah, certainly we would make it available to all of our partners in law enforcement, sure.
I'm sure we would. I'm sure you would, Chief. But it occurred to me that would be kind of a cool thing. I'm sure they would do the same. Thanks.
Okay. Can we take a short 5-minute break?
sure.
Thank you. 5-minute break. Next on the agenda is Public Works Operations, the ordering of the leaf collection equipment for 2023 and 2024. Director of Public Works, Ken Slater.
And part of the reason we're bringing this forward is just to inform you of the grant we're applying for. Because with the long lead times we have, we actually at the moment, we have 4 major pieces of equipment that were ordered last December or early in the beginning of this year. None of those 4 pieces of equipment have arrived yet. And they're estimating that the lead times are going to be as long or somewhere near there as we go forward in the next year or two. The one, the complete collection truck and vacuum system, we're not going to recommend ordering until we actually determine whether or not we receive the grant, which won't be until approximately April. But the collection unit, I do recommend that we order it so that we have it coming. And part of the reason is that unit today suffered a catastrophic failure, so it's going to be offline for a while until we can get it glued back together. So
Hopefully in a few days. No.
yeah, so it is reaching the end of its life though, so we do need to replace that unit. So we are anticipating ordering that unit prior to even, being determined whether or not we have the grant for it,
Yeah.
so that we can keep our collection going.
Yeah, we're fairly confident we're gonna get the grant.
Yes.
But, we can't say about 100%. So again, we just wanna let the board know we're ordering this equipment ahead of time. Probably, maybe at the next meeting, we'll have the grant application, ready for the board to look at. But, again, we just wanna let you know that we're trying to anticipate these long lead times and doing what we can at this point.
Okay. Thank you. I also would like to put on record that Supervisor Magruder has been excused for this evening's meeting. Next on the agenda is the Engineering, Planning, and Zoning Planning Commission report. And that is Planning Commissioner William Burnett. Welcome again.
Yes, thank you. So we had a very short meeting, first Monday of this month. We had brought to us a request for the change of zoning regulations for the Toff Trees Resort by Bob Poole. They're asking for, I believe, to go from a 50-foot maximum height to a 75-foot maximum height, and along with an increase of 50 residential units. We discussed things with Bob Poole, and we referred this back to staff for a later period for us to decide whether or not to approve that request. I believe staff is working out details of various options and concessions from the developer. In addition to that, we also received the College Township Pedestrian Facilities Master Plan. We looked it over, and again, we really
Had no comment.
We had no comment on
Okay.
it whatsoever. And that's basically what it is. So the only issue that we see coming back to us at this time is going to be is that hotel issue up in the Toff Trees Resort.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Supervisor Abrams.
The next time we consider sidewalks, I was noticing where they're building that development near the duck pond. It's a very steep incline there, and I think it's going to be student housing. It didn't look like there was much room for a sidewalk along the road there where people are going to have to come down the road. It's not our plan or anything, but it's just I hope they have a sidewalk plan there.
I do know that a few of the commissioners do have, are very big on sidewalks. I believe the last plan for the Asian market on North Atherton, there was a lot of lengthy discussion about adding a ramp up to the bus stop that was behind that market. So there are several members of the Planning Township Commission that are very interested in the expansion of sidewalks. So I will pass that along to them.
Thank you. All right, next on the agenda is the request and review for College Township Pedestrian Facility Master Plan. And that is Planner Mark Roussel.
Yes, so College Township recently prepared a pedestrian facilities master plan for their municipality. They forwarded a copy of that draft plan off to all of the Center Region municipalities as well as to Center County. And they're looking for feedback from the community just on the plan contents and its intents and purposes. This plan is really intended to promote pedestrian connectivity throughout their township as well as access to pedestrian facilities. They've gone through a ranking process of identifying where they feel pedestrian connections are most needed, as well as a review of their subdivision and land development regulations to identify some barriers to obtaining those connections in the future through development. So if there was a link to the digital copy of the plan in your agenda. If the board has any comments you'd like to forward on to the College Township planner to then be forwarded on to their planning commission and council, we'd be happy to go ahead and send those along. They also have an online survey that you can take as well to provide feedback on the plan and its contents.
Okay, thank you. Any of the supervisors have questions? Supervisor Abrams?
I think there's some confusion in the area about whether you stop at crosswalks. And I think part of the problem is that they're handled all differently. Some of the ones, for example, you drive down Atherton Street and there's some crosswalks that have the thing that says state law in the middle of it. And sort of like that's the most important crosswalk there. But there are others that have the same markings on the road but don't have those kinds of things. And you see some people stop and some people don't. I remember when I was a student, the best way to cross the street was to ignore any cars that were coming toward you and hope they stopped as you continue to cross the street. But it's dangerous, and should we have some uniformity with it?
I'm not quite certain. I'm sorry?
Yeah, according to state law, any crosswalk that's not at a signalized intersection, motorists are supposed to yield to pedestrians, to a pedestrian in the crosswalk. That's the state law. As you said, it's not uniformly enforced. If you go to Bellefonte, it's enforced pretty strictly. If you go to downtown State College, it's not enforced. It's not enforced on Penn State's campus. So it's been an issue as long as I've been around. But that's the state of the state law. And like I said, I mean, you can go, different communities handle it differently. In the center region here, there's never been a big push to enforce it. So that's why pedestrians typically do not yield to pedestrians. At signalized intersections, the pedestrians have to obey the signals.
Okay. Any other questions?
No, first time I really started thinking about this was when I visited Kansas City once, and at the Country Club Plaza in Kansas City shopping center, and a multi-use thing, but everybody stops at every crosswalk. They do that.
Yeah, I mean, I remember we went to Worcester, Mass once for a convention, and we were just wandering around, and we were standing there at a crosswalk waiting. It's like a 6-lane street. There were like 3 or 4 of us standing at a crosswalk, mid-block crossing, and next thing we looked up, and all the cars had stopped, and they were waiting for us to cross. And again, it's up to the individual municipalities how they handle it, unfortunately.
Okay. Supervisor Turin.
Doug, do we have a similar ordinance in our,
Oh, it's a state law.
no, what the College Township is?
No, we don't have a process for waivers that they're looking at. We require sidewalks almost in all circumstances on both sides of the roads.
Yeah, that's what I meant. We would do.
Yeah.
We do require sidewalks in New.
Yeah, there are a few exceptions, places where we don't, but they're fairly minor, almost everywhere. Except in the rural area, we do require sidewalks along the street.
And I think what College Township's trying to do in some cases, they've issued waivers in the past when those sidewalks were not feasible for some reason related to the property. They are looking at having a pedestrian facility fee in lieu being paid. If they are unable to install it, at least the township would get some funds that they could then install facilities elsewhere identified within the master plan. So that's something that they're pursuing that's become more common, I think, or at least some municipalities are utilizing that type of regulation.
Supervisor Whitman, are you finished, Supervisor? Supervisor Whitman?
I'd just like to go on record how impressed I was with their plan and also the purpose behind it, which is to start taking some concrete steps, as it were, pun intended, towards a more sustainable community. They've just simply sat down and looked at that and gotten a bigger picture. So I would suggest that perhaps our new planner, who I know has a background in transportation, might kind of bite at that. And if she did, I think she'd get considerable support from this board member anyway. So, and I want to give my personal welcome to Leslie Warner. Thank you. It was just a way to do that. Thanks so much.
Okay. Anybody else? All right. Thank you, Mark. Okay. Next on the agenda, administration. 2023 to 2027 capital improvement, and Doug or Larry?
I'll take this. So the title should say capital improvement plan. And budget calendar. So there's vigorous conversations going on at COG Finance Committee about the COG budget. Those will continue tomorrow and then another session next Monday, where they'll be looking to wrap that up and give us some final numbers. So everybody's working together to try to get COG down to an 8% increase. And given that, Larry was pretty close with the CIP, the capital improvement plan, last week, and we discussed it and said, well, let's just wait until we get the COG numbers. It's going to push everything back a little bit. It'll compress our process a little bit, but we will have that for you on the next meeting, October 26th. So, and just to reiterate and remind people, so we'll look at the CIP on the 26th. The things that the two numbers that we end up looking at when we look at CIPs are what's the anticipated tax rate and how much cash balance are we going to have at the end of each year of those 5 years going forward. In an ideal world, we may have no tax increases and we keep the cash balance in that 8 to 12% range of expenditures. So Larry, when we get the COG numbers in, Larry will run through a first review of that. We'll take a look at it. We'll make some adjustments as needed to get as close to that ideal as we can. And then on the 26th, we'll bring it to the board. Can't guarantee you there won't be any tax increases in it this time, but we'll try to keep those. So the question then will be, if we don't want to do tax increases, it means we have to probably push some projects off to future years. We generally never say we're not going to do anything. We just say we're going to have to wait a year or two or three to do something. So, that'll be probably the question before the board on the 26th. So we'll get that. We'll have a good idea of what we're looking at in terms of taxes for the next few years, especially for 2023. With that done, Larry and the rest of the department heads will finish putting the budget together. That will be in your hands on November 4th. We'll have a initial look at it on November 9th. Larry will do his presentation, and then state law requires that we have a public hearing to get input, and that will take place on the following Wednesday, November 16th. So just to remind everybody, you got 2 weeks break until your next meeting, but then for the next 4 weeks, we will be meeting October 26th, November 2nd, November 9th, November 16th. Possibility, if there's really not a whole lot going on November 2nd, we might be able to cancel that meeting and put the stuff on the other agendas, but we're going to keep it on the calendar for right now. And then ultimately, we get through our full process, and then the budget will be back before the board on December 14th for a final approval. So just wanted to get everybody, remind you what our calendar is, and that we've still got a lot of work to do in the next couple of months, but Larry and the staff here are doing a diligent job of getting all the numbers together. That's the end of my report. Anything you want to add, Larry?
No, that sounds good. That sounds exactly what I'm looking at.
Okay, thanks. You're a little fuzzy, but I think we got that.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Okay, Supervisor Abel.
I knew the Lucy Committee meeting had been moved to tomorrow. It was still listed here for that it occurred on the 6th, that it normally would have occurred on the 6th.
Okay.
But this month it's on the 13th.
Okay, Supervisor Trevino.
Yeah, since Doug brought up the COG budget hearings, I think I'll give the board a summary now instead of waiting till, committee reports section of the agenda.
Okay.
We've had two budget hearings where we reviewed 4 agencies, and tomorrow is the last scheduled budget hearings. It will be for fire, emergency management, and parks and recreation. Those tomorrow were rescheduled because, if you recall, our last board meeting, I had informed our board that the initial proposed budget from COG had a municipal contribution increase over last year of 16%. And I and Doug and Larry, we all thought that was very unreasonable increase, and that I would be proposing at that first budget hearing meeting, which was going to be the next day after our board meeting, a reduced target of an 8% increase in municipal contributions. So I did that, and the rest of the finance committee agreed with me. So basically, we sent the whole budget process back to the COG agencies and asked them to revise their budgets and to try to achieve a target of an 8% increase in municipal contributions over 2022. So the hearings we've held so far, the agencies have attempted to do so. Some did a better job. That's a value judgment, sorry. Some were able to and some were not. Interestingly, the library, their initial budget proposal was only for a 6.8% increase in municipal contributions over last year. So they had already achieved even less than our target, so they didn't have to change their budget at all. Tomorrow, I just received this afternoon, and so did Larry, the proposed changes for Parks and Recreation and Fire and EM. So I have to go back tonight and review all that before our meeting tomorrow morning at 8:30. The reason we're going to have an extra meeting next Monday is that tomorrow's meeting was supposed to be the wrap-up session. But since we sent the budget back to the agencies and Parks and Rec and Fire and EM were rescheduled, we had to schedule another, a later wrap-up session, which is going to be next Monday. The purpose of the wrap-up session is to review all the recommended Finance Committee proposed changes after the budget hearings of each agency, and the agency requests to reinsert some of their proposals, which they had deleted at our direction to achieve a, quote, status quo budget. So the Monday meeting is going to be the important one. If anybody here is interested in viewing that or seeing the CNET recording after it already happens, I'd encourage you to do that, because that's going to be the definitive meeting because after that wrap-up session is when COG will then present the Finance Committee approved budget that's going to go to Exec Committee, and then from Exec Committee to the General Forum meeting at the end of the month. Then?
Thank you, Supervisor Trevino. I did witness and saw the CNET Finance Committee meeting.
Yeah, tomorrow at 8:30, and then, the wrap-up session on next Monday is going to start at 8 o'clock, not 8:30.
Thank you. Any other questions? All right, moving right along, since we moved 7B up. Next on the agenda is vacancies of authorities, boards, and commissions, ABC, for the 2023, and I think, Doug, that's you.
Yeah, we got 4 vacancies that we're going to be filling for January of next year. 2 on the Planning Commission, 2 on the Recreation Advisory Committee. Those 4 are all vacant because the person in there is term limited out. We have term limits for all our ABCs to make sure that we get a new mix of people in there, and we get new ideas and have plenty of opportunities for volunteers. So if you know any people who might be interested, encourage them to fill out a talent bank application. There was a copy of that included in the agenda, and there's a copy available on our website. There's a link on the agenda too. If you go to our website and look at the agenda, or if you look under, I think under the website, it's under the tab on the left. Can't remember. Search for authorities, boards, and commissions, and it should come up for you. So just want to let you know that we'll be looking for that. We'll push some information out on social media, probably do at least a couple ads in the CDT, and see if we can generate, and then we'll convene the ABC committee and hopefully in December to talk to some folks and see if we can get some recommendations ready for our first meeting in January. And that's all I need to report on that.
All right, thank you, Doug. Next on the agenda is the consent agenda. Right back at you.
There's just meeting approval or minute approval, voucher report from last month, and a letter from the manager saying he's going to retire on May 12th of 2023.
No. Can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda? Can I get a second?
Reluctantly.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Moving on, next on the agenda is the manager's report.
A couple pieces of correspondence, letter to the Hamer Foundation thanking them, and for their grant of $164,400 and just, they needed a confirmation of that from also. And then development update from the zoning officer was also there if you have any questions. Announcements, there was another update from Department of Environmental Protection about the PFA groundwater issue in Benner Township. Again, DEP is doing a real good job of staying on top of that and informing folks, so we'll leave that in their hands. If you're interested in the State College Area Connector Study, that's what to do about Route 322 between Seven Mountains and State College. PennDOT is having public meetings next week, October 19th and 20th at Mount Nittany Middle School in Boalsburg. They've narrowed it down. That public meeting will show you the 3 routes that they're looking at. They've narrowed it down from, I think, 8 or 10 to down to 3. That'll go forward in more detailed study, but you can go to their website and look at that too, or attend the meetings next week. In terms of upcoming events, bulk waste collection is next week, and trick or treat is on Halloween night.
All right.
End of my report.
That's 168. All right. Thank you, Doug. Next on the agenda is the committee reports. Is there any supervisor that would like to add to their committee report at this time? Supervisor Torino.
Just to let the board know that the Parks Special Committee on Parks and Rec Governance has suspended meeting temporarily because the committee had decided that we wanted to have a facilitator help with the meeting process. Because we felt we were at a point where we've had all this discussion and there was, we needed someone without any vested interest to come in and facilitate the remainder of our discussion on changes, if any, well, we have to make changes because many of the documents are now out of date and have to be updated. So that committee will not meet again until sometime early next year once we have a facilitator designated to assist us.
Okay. Supervisor Abel.
I went to the MPO meeting and they talked about the proposed routes for the State College Connector. Now, we're not officially in the group that's considering that, and I actually objected to that when it first came out because I found that actually State College Borough isn't even in the State College Connector official group. But one concern I know that some people in Harris Township have is they'd like to have that, instead of a 4-lane road that's limited access, like the rest of 322 all the way from Harrisburg to here, and all I-80 is all the way from where you connect 422 to I-80 to San Francisco. They'd like to have it as a 4-lane, just like an Atherton Street type thing, where you could have businesses and traffic lights. And in my opinion, that's not a good idea. I think that maybe that's a second road, maybe it should be a service road, but I think that having a road that has impediments to the straight through flow of traffic is not the best idea for that corridor. But that's just my opinion, and I'm not a voting person on that, but I just want to make everyone aware of that. If you feel one way or the other, make your opinion known.
Okay. Thank you. Supervisor Whitman?
Yeah, I'll give a brief report on the Climate Action and Sustainability Committee. One, we are sending a letter to Senator Jake Corman showing our support and requesting his support of a bill before the Pennsylvania Senate that would allow community solar. So that is a bill that has bipartisan support. So we're hoping that would finally make it through the legislative process. There's a similar bill in the House, and we'll be sending a letter to the House regarding their bill. Or I should say to our representatives, Scott Conklin, regarding that bill. And the second item in climate action was discussion on a survey that will be sent out to concerning waste management, what people want in their service, what they're perceiving their service to be. Specifically, we talked about the interest in having compostable, sorry about that, a moment, picked up, or not picked up, but having compostables, having a system that allows people to get rid of them without putting them in the landfill. So that was actually quite a heated discussion, and I'm looking forward to the next part of that, because one of the purposes of this survey is not just to get information, but also to educate people on the need for living sustainably. So it's a back and forth process. And I have to admit that in the facilities committee, I need to talk to Larry. Had some questions about that, and I just haven't made time to do that this week. So we did hear that Whitehall Road Park has had some weather delays, and so construction is being put off. And there was, and Larry, maybe you can help me out here, the contingency fund, and then we did hear that Millbrook Marsh is going, the Parks and Rec is going forward with bids for the Millbrook Marsh Boardwalk, but that boardwalk, as they perceive it now with the latest technology, is upwards in $1 million, and I just had a lot of questions about that and the budget going forward. So, oh, here comes Larry to save me, save the day. Larry, do you want to jump in there and talk about the contingency fund, which I didn't quite get?
Excuse me, I haven't been feeling well, so.
Oh, I'm sorry, I heard that, yeah.
So, can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so the contingency fund that we originally set up for the Whitehall Road Park was $75,000. They have way overspent that contingency fund, so now they are asking to pay off the bills, which I think was $210,000, replace the contingency fund with another $75,000, plus some additional monies that they want, for about a total of $625,000, which doesn't include the amount that I found out last week or on Tuesday, or last week, I think it might have been, that they wanted to use part of the insurance reserve, another $91,000 for a water wheel. So they're asking for a lot of money for us to, we have money set aside with what was borrowed of about $865,000, I think it is. And they want to draw down $625,000 of that for Whitehall Road Park. And also the Nature Center's boardwalk, Betsy is right, it's coming in with the special type of wood they want to use, with the limitations of what they can do to not affect the creek bed. It's coming in at substantially more than they thought it was going to be. $1 million, I think, sounds right. So if anybody has any questions about that, I can answer those.
Thank you, Larry.
Thank you, Larry. Questions? Betsy? Oh, Supervisor Trevino.
Not a question, but just to pass on some more information about Millbrook Marsh. And Whitehall Road, the funding request, additional funding request. I found out about that today. I wasn't, I didn't attend the facilities committee meeting, so I didn't know about it, but Joe Vigilone, the Director of Finance for COG, had proposed an agenda item on our Monday wrap-up session for the budget about this. And the chair of our finance committee, Rich Frank from College Township, objected to bundle it with, our budget, the COG budget wrap-up session. He felt very strongly that this kind of an issue of requesting funds over and above what Finance Committee had already approved needed a separate discussion, separate from the budget wrap-up session. So it's not likely that it's going to be on the Monday agenda. We may, depending on what the outcome is of Joe and Eric's discussion with Rich, who knows? We may schedule another Finance Committee meeting to deal with with this particular issue, and whether it's going to occur in October or November, who knows? I'm just passing on some additional information for you, Larry and Betsy, to be aware of. And so thank you for bringing it up, so the board is forewarned
Okay.
that this is going to be another contentious issue about them asking for more money than what was already approved.
Larry, thank you. Betsy? Is that your final on your report?
It is, and I'm thankful Larry was there to listen
Okay.
in, because it's
Thank you again,
a
Larry.
little bit beyond me.
Okay, for me, well, the Public Safety Committee meeting just met yesterday, so I'll have my report at the next meeting. Next on the agenda is other business. And before we close out, I want to put it on record, Supervisor Abrams, I will not be here for our next meeting, so you will be chair. And is there any other business, Doug?
Which date is that?
No, ma'am.
26th. All right. Seeing none, moving on. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 I want to thank everyone. This meeting is now adjourned.